Mitchell, and you'd have to try to summarise the statement. Thank you.
Thank you, President. I understand I have some injury time for not being able to get in at the beginning of the debate. My apologies, I got held in traffic. Can I say, first of all, a colleague has criticised, a British colleague, the situation in relation to the importance of democracy and human rights. If democracy and human rights were functioning in our member states, then we wouldn't have children going to school on bread and jam. And that is the reality of it, whether it's in Britain or any other member state. And I think it's clearly a matter for those member states to ensure that that doesn't happen. But let us be very clear about this, what this is all about, not just democracy and human rights. 22,000 children die each day, every day, a short plane journey from this building. 22,000. The good news is that it used to be 34,000. We and others have it down to 22,000 because of democracy and human rights and the sort of financial instruments which the Union has approved. So let us not pit those people against the children in our own member states going to school on bread and jam, which I deplore also. But let our member state governments get their act together in dealing with those children. This issue is about implementation or delegated acts. Is it implementation or is it a delegated act, in which case it's legislation? And I propose to stick completely to Parliament's first reading and thus to say that we will and have reinstated all amendments, and these have not been accepted by the Council. The issue at stake is one of principle and crucial to the future nature of interinstitutional relations in the area of external action. The amendments proposed by Parliament do not concern the substance of the DCI or the other instruments, but the role of Parliament in the practical implementation of the law. The objective is to protect the democratic prerogatives of the European Parliament as foreseen by the Lisbon Treaty. As co-legislator, we must be able to control on an equal footing with the Council the adoption and the execution of strategic decisions on the spending of development aid. How much, where and how. In technical terms, the amendments ensure that certain draft decisions taken by the Commission are recognised as delegated acts, as defined in Article 290 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. This would give the two branches of the legislative authority the possibility to object to draft decisions which are not in conformity with the requirements of the law. This veto would ensure that Parliament's suggestions are taken into account when the Commission programmes EU aid. Let me be clear that we are not talking about micromanagement, as a colleague has already said, or individual programmes and projects. The amendments will ensure that legislators keep control over strategic decisions concerning funding allocations and sectoral priorities. All proposed amendments were already included in Parliament's first reading position, which was adopted with a wide majority by plenary on the 21st of October last. But the Council has flatly rejected all amendments on democratic scrutiny and delegated acts without proposing any alternative solution which would satisfy Parliament's demands. It is unfortunate that during the many months, almost 1 year, that has passed since the first discussion of the dossier in committee, the interinstitutional negotiations have not made any progress. And I can assure this House that we have really tried very hard. Negotiations with Council and the Commission, which should facilitate these negotiations incidentally, started in February 2010. We held 3 dialogues and several meetings at technical level, both on the contentious issues of delegated acts. On these issues there has been no rapprochement. Only towards the end of last year did the Commission negotiators come up with a compromise proposal. Parliament immediately reacted with a counter-proposal, but this was not reflected in the Council's position. We understand that it was not formally transmitted to the Member States meeting within the Council. Despite the hard line of the Council, which is shared by the Commission, and which I regret because it is not their constitutional position to do so, Parliament insists on its position. Legally, our arguments are sound. The strategy papers and multiannual programmes decided under the DCI, for example, fulfil the criteria for the application of the Delegated Act procedure. They supplement the basic regulation and are of general application. The criteria mentioned in Article 290 are compulsory if they are fulfilled Council and Parliament must have a veto right. This is not a matter of political bargains or any special arrangements, as this would be contrary to the treaty. It is a legal obligation. Politically, we have the full support of our Conference of Presidents, which decided on 2 different occasions, the last was earlier this month, that in all dossiers negotiations should insist on the application of the Delegated Acts procedure for decisions concerning the objectives, choice of priorities, expected results and financial allocations in broad terms. We also have a common line among the committees. The rapporteurs in INTA and AFET, respectively, responsible for the instruments for cooperation with industrialised countries and the instrument for human rights and democracy, have adopted the very same approach as I have. All amendments concerning delegated acts from first reading should be reinstated. Our position is plain and simple and fully in line with the mandate of the Conference of Presidents. We will not be divided or have our role as a legislature ignored. I am convinced that the introduction of the new procedure would also be in the interest of the intended beneficiaries of our financial instruments. Parliament could play much more effectively its role as watchdog and ensure that the money is spent on the core objectives defined in the Treaty for the Union's development cooperation, the reduction and ultimately the eradication of poverty. 22,000 children do not need to die each day, every day, and we demand to have our say in how this issue is addressed. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mitchell. You actually had more speaking time as a rapporteur because you summarised your statement from the beginning and the end. There's a blue card from Mr. Deva. Do you accept the blue card question? Go ahead, Mr. Deva, 30 seconds.
Madam President.